Alright, I'm using JK corners, and the pin order goes like this: DR, UL, U, R, AUF, flip, DR, UL, U, R, matching these, slash move to solve these. And now what we are going to do is we solve either the DL corner or the UR corner directly to 12, depending on which one is closer. So in this example, the UR corner is 5 from the 12 and the DL corner as well, so it doesn't really matter. Let's say we solve DL first and putting this pin down, then solving the other corner, putting this pin down, and then finishing the solve. I sometimes use some variations of this order. This one is going to be called the down order, and it goes like this: DR, UL, UR, U, AUF. The other order that is sometimes used is called the side order, and it goes like this: DR, UL, UR, R, AUF. Now, some of the techniques I'm going to present only really work with JK corners. However, it doesn't really matter how you solve the cross. Like, for example, if your pin order starts with DL, UR, U, and so on, you can just follow along and mirror your order in the end. It doesn't really matter. The concepts will still work. AUF skips skip the cross alignment step of the first side. There are 4 types of AUF skips with 11 possibilities per side. Type 1 opposite AUF skips. The difference between the center and one edge puts the opposite edge on 12. For example, here you can see the difference between the center and U is 4, and if you apply 4 on the bottom edge, it would yield 12. You can hold it vertically like this and solve with the down order like this. Four moves. We have the same skip as before, but you can also hold it like this horizontally and solve it using the side order. Type 2 adjacent AUF skips. In that case, the difference between the center and one edge puts an adjacent edge on 12. You solve it by holding the participating edges on DL and using the default order. Type 3 monkey skips. Instead of just 2 opposite edges or 2 adjacent edges, there are now 3 participating edges for this AUF skip. In this example, you can see that the difference between the center and R is -4, and the difference between the center and D is 1. In total, -3. The U edge needs -3 to reach 12, so we found an AUF skip consisting of these 3 edges. You can solve the monkey skip by holding the 3 participating edges on the bottom and using your default order, except that you replace the UL move by L. You can also hold the 3 participating edges on the left and use the default order, except you replace the first DR move by D. Type 4 monkey R skips. There are 4 participating edges and there is only 1 possibility per side. In this case, you can see the difference between the center and R is -4, between the center and D is 1, and between the center and L is -1. In total, -4. -4 added to the U clock yields 12. So there's a monkey R skip with all 4 participating edges. You can solve this by using the default order, except you replace the first move by D and the second move by L. these were all the different AUF skips that you can find on one side. The AUF skips with 3 or more participating edges are generally a little bit inferior because, first of all the 4 pins are moving all the time. You can't preserve any corner. And secondly, the pin transitions are a little bit worse. I'm going to recap the 5 types of basic corner skips that you can find on a scramble. The lefty corner skip. One edge is already aligned with the corner on its left. You can solve this by solving the first side normally. These are still aligned because we never moved this pin. However, after solving the cross on the second side, you can't just normally align this corner with this. You have to mirror the order. Instead, you use this pin order and align this corner with these. And from there solve normally. The righty corner skip. You can see that the bottom edge is already aligned to the corner on its right. For this kind of corner skip, you need to do Y2 flip. It's preserved. And now you can just solve normally. And it skips. The pseudo corner skip type 1. The difference between the center and an edge is the same as the difference between an adjacent edge to an adjacent corner. You can solve this by using a diagonal flip. It's still preserved. And now you don't have to worry about anything. Just solve normally. And you get a skip. The lefty pseudo corner skip type 2. The difference between this center and this edge is the same as between this edge and this corner. You can solve this by preserving this corner. Now the first move will align these two. You have to use the down order to preserve the skip. The righty pseudo corner skip type 2. This is just the mirror of the case before. This difference is the same as this. You can hold it on the left and use the side order. Now we are talking about forcing multiple corner skips at once instead of just one. Generally, we will be able to preserve the DL corner, predict these two adjacent corners, and manipulate the UR corner. The rule is actually pretty simple. The UL corner is going to move by the absolute value of the L edge, while the DR corner is going to move by the absolute value of the D edge. This works regardless of the pin order you are using for your first side. Consider the following example. There's an edge lucky case and no corner skip on this side, and it's the same on the other side. So which side are we going to start on? We can consider the adjacent corner skip values, or in short, ACSV. On this side, it would be 2 and -3. So this corner is going to move by 2. No corner skip. This corner is going to move by -3. No corner skip either. Let's say we start on this side. The ACSV are 4 and 0. Adding 4 to this corner aligns this corner with this edge. So we found a corner skip. And we can actually just use this AUF skip as well, because any pin order works. And they are aligned. Another useful application of the ACS technique is the following example. On this scramble, we have a normal corner skip. We could preserve it and solve normally. However, let's check the ACSV. It's 2 and 6. The 2 is not doing anything, because we will only be able to use one of those two corner skips. However, the 6 will align this corner with this edge. And this actually allows us to change our pin order on the second side in order to exploit this corner skip. Now, all three of those are aligned. Normally we would break this corner skip with the first move, but now we can use the D move instead of the R move and get both corner skips. The ACS technique is designed to work in conjunction with an already preserved corner skip. However, in theory, we could use this technique to find our starting corner skip. Let's consider the following scramble. There are no corner skips on either side. Let's calculate the ACSV for the whole side. It's 4, minus 4, 1, minus 4. On this side, we quickly notice that this corner needs 4 to be aligned with this edge. So we can force our starting corner skip by starting like this. And we will get this corner skip on the other side. Now, I don't consider this application of ACS very viable, because on almost any scramble you will find a starting corner skip or an AUF skip or something else. But it's a neat trick. We have learned how to preserve the DL corner, and we have learned how to predict those two corners. Now we are going to force a corner skip on the UR corner, the only remaining corner. Consider the following scramble. We want to preserve this corner skip. On the first side we have to calculate 4 numbers, the so-called dcsv. The first number is the difference between L and U, in that case 1. The second one is the difference between D and R, in that case minus 3. The third number is the sum of those two numbers, so minus 2. The fourth number is the difference between the center and U added to the R edge. That's minus 3, makes 6. The UR corner will move by one of those 4 numbers. Depending on which of those numbers yields a corner skip on the other side, we can choose our pin order for the first side. The first number corresponds to the side pin order with \AUF. The second number corresponds to the down pin order with \AUF. The third number corresponds to the default pin order with \AUF. The fourth number corresponds to any of the normal 3 pin orders, but you can't use \AUF, you have to use a normal AUF. On the other side, we see that a minus 2 would align this corner with this edge. Minus 2 was the third number that we calculated, so we will choose the default pin order with /AUF. And now we have preserved this corner skip and we forced an additional one. Another interesting type of skip is the cap skip. Cap is short for clock alignment parity, and we are skipping the last move of the second side. For the original concept, please watch Monkey's video, the link is in the description. The general idea is that we are using all 14 clocks to calculate the parity of the scramble, and only all moves or slash moves can change this number. Now, if this number happens to be 0, we can, in theory, force the cap skip by just not doing any or slash moves at all. However, this is not really viable, because looking at all 14 clocks and then doing a calculation takes a lot of time, and also our pin order has a slash move, so this number is going to be changed anyway in the course of the solve. Now, the way the JK corners pin order works is that the DL corner only works by the difference between L and UL. Furthermore, the alignment on the second side is not even the last move, right? Because when we solve the last 2 corners, we're doing an all move and we solve either UR or DL. If one of them happens to be at 12, we skip the alignment step. This is called a half cap skip, and I'm going to show you how to force one. On this scramble, there's a pseudo corner skip on this corner, so we are going to preserve this. The ACSV are minus 1 and minus 2. So we already know this corner is going to end up at 9. The difference between L and UL will be minus 5. So this corner is going to end up at 1. Now let's calculate the dcsv. There are 4, 4, minus 4, and minus 1. Minus 1 would move this corner to the 12th. So we can use the default order to force a half cap skip on side 2. you see the corner is aligned to 12, just as expected. By the way, this works regardless of if we are using the default order, the side order, or the down order. We can also use the alternative pin order where we align this corner to this instead of vice versa to force a similar kind of cap skip, except on this axis instead of this. That's just the mirror. I'm not going into much detail here. On this scramble, let's start on this side. The ACSV is 3. So this corner is going to move by 3. The difference between this edge and this corner is 2. So the L corner is going to move by 2 and will end up at 6. There's no cap skip, right? However, you will notice that the difference between the center and the R edge is 6. Now, we can actually use a pseudo half cap skip in order to force a skip here. It goes like this. We solve the first side normally, and on the second side we will use an L move instead of the UL move. Half cap skips work because our pin order uses 2 slash moves and an all move, so the parity value is not set in stone when you arrive on side 2. It's constantly changing until the very end. Quickly going over some other types of cap skips that you can use by not doing all of the slash or all moves. If you add this difference and this difference and this difference to the DL corner, you get 12. This skip is called the 7/9 cap skip because it uses 7 of the 9 clocks on the second side. You can get the skip if you just don't do the second slash move. To the pseudo half cap skip, you can use an L move to add this difference to the calculation of the 7/9 cap skip. However, part of the calculation was this difference and they will just even out, which just means you can get a pseudo 7/9 cap skip by adding this difference and this difference to the DL corner. In that case, it yields 12 and you can use it just like the 7/9 cap skip, except you're doing an L move. Okay, there was another corner skip as well. Instead of getting rid of one of the calculations of the 7/9 cap skip, you can also extend it so that you use all 9 clocks. If you add this difference, this difference, this difference, and this difference to the DL corner, it yields 12 in this case. And this is just the full cap skip, or the 9/9 cap skip. You can use this skip by just not doing any slash or all move at all. Okay, admittedly, some of these skips might not be viable because the calculations really get crazy. I'm not sure if they are really possible in 15 seconds of inspection. However, there's a cool thing you can do with half cap skips, that is, forcing them as a starting corner skip without choosing your orientation first. On this scramble, the difference between L and UL is 3, right? And on the other side, the difference between UL and L is -3. The sum of that is 0, and whenever you find something like that on a scramble, you can force a half cap skip. Because of the way ACS and math works, this is always going to work with an x2 flip. Let me show you. You can solve the first side normally, of course preserving one corner, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get a half cap skip on the other side. Yeah, in that case there were also 2 other corner skips, but you see the DL corner ends up on 12. So whenever you're not finding any normal corner skip or pseudo stuff on a scramble, you can look for half cap skips. Every edge of those 4 edges can have one. You only have to look at this difference and one of the differences on the other side. You can also use them with a Y2 flip if you hold it on the bottom like this. There are different possibilities. And yeah, that's just pretty cool thing, right? Because the original concept required you to look at all 14 clocks and have a kind of complex calculation. Now you can force cap skips basically by only looking at 2 differences or 4 clocks. But one thing to note is that you can't use a half cap skip on DL if there's already a normal corner skip on DL. In this scramble there's a pseudo corner skip type 1 on DL, and there's also a half cap skip here. And let me show you what happens. This corner skips, of course. Now, as expected, the corner ends up on 12, but it's also solved. So you need 2 more moves to solve this corner anyway. However, this is not true if you skip UR too. On this scramble there's another pseudo corner skip type 1 on the L, but there's also one on UR, and there's our half cap skip here. Let me show you what happens. You skip both corners and the clock alignment parity. Now these don't come up very often, but there's actually another type of corner skip that can happen, that is slash skips. And it basically means that 2 diagonal corners are aligned already. The recognition is pretty simple. If this difference is the same as this, you will get a slash skip, regardless of your pin order. Yeah, they are aligned. What I just showed you would technically be called a backslash skip, but you can also get normal slash skips. To force a true slash skip, you have to choose your pin order on the second side wisely. If the UR corner plus the difference between U and L is the value of the DL corner, you use the side pin order. If this difference added to UR yields DL, you use the down pin order. If the sum of both of these differences added to UR yields DL, you use the default pin order. In that case, this difference is 1, this is 2, and the difference between UR and DL is 3, so you can use the default pin order to get a slash skip. There's also a backslash skip, funny. But you see, there's also a slash skip. So here's the thing, there are tons of different types of corner skips, and some of them can be combined, some of them can't, some of them only work on UR, some of them only on DL, and so on. Now before moving on to the example solves, I want to talk about some of the consequences or applications of those techniques. We generally assume that we preserve the DL corner in all of those techniques. However, sometimes you can't find a starting corner skip or anything like that. In that case, you can actually manipulate the DL corner just the same way that you would manipulate the UR corner. But I'm not going into much detail. Okay, this is the line case. It's a lucky case for edges, and you skip 2 moves basically. But it's really not that great because of the pin transitions. I mean, the best pin order would probably be L, all, R. And there's still 2 pin changes per move. It's really not that great. However, in most of the cases you can avoid doing the line pin order and get the same number of skips. Whenever any of the edges is on 12, you can use an AOF skip instead. For example here, the D edge is on 12. You can just break apart the line case and only use the lucky case on U and get an AOF skip. Or when one of these adjacent edges is on 12, like here, you can use the default order skip, because this is an adjacent AOF skip. You can put it on the L and break this lucky case. And you still get a skip. But even if you don't have any AOF skips, you can sometimes force an additional corner skip by breaking up the line case. On this scramble, those 2 corners will move by 5, and those 2 corners will move by 3. No corner skip. However, if you calculate the normal ACSV, it's -5 and 2. And this corner will move by 2, and you will get a skip here. So basically, 1, 2, 4, 5, And there's your corner skip. Another thing I find interesting is that corner skips seem to be generally better than AUF skips. Both are a skip, but if you use an AUF skip, you can't really force additional corner skips because the pin order of your first side is set. I mean, it's still possible, but it's a bit harder. While when you have a corner skip, you can preserve it and still force a second one, or even a third or fourth corner skip. This is a pretty common situation. There's a corner skip here, and there's also an AUF skip here. You can't use both, because the AUF skip has to be used on the first side, and the corner skip has to be used on the second side. So let's say we want to use this corner skip. Like this. We are going to preserve this, and the dcsv are 4, -4, 0, and -2. -4 creates a skip here, so basically we can just not do the AF skip, do the corner skip instead, and force us a double corner skip, which is better, like this. And both are there. Moving on to the example solves. I will actually only do one example solve because the video is getting a bit long and I actually included a lot of examples anyway in the video already. Okay, on this scramble there's an edge case here and nothing much else on this side. On the other side there's another edge case and also corner skip, but I can't really use this corner skip because I have to use this pin in order to use this edge case. But let's see what happens if I do use this corner skip. In that case I have to preserve this corner. The ICSV are -4, -4. So it would be on 6. This one would align here and make another corner skip, which is already good. Now let's check the dcsv. It's -2, 3, 1, and -5. Alright, okay, I can already directly see that a 3 would align these two to make the triple corner skip. And actually, thinking about it, this will end up on 2, and this will end up on 6. So this difference is going to be -2, which puts this on 12 and makes another cap skip. I'm going to show the execution. 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8. I am aware that some of these techniques might not be that viable. However, some of these techniques are actually really easy to use, especially the ACS or the half cap skips. I think they're really cool. So if you want to step up your inspection game and use all the 15 seconds of inspection to craft cool clock solutions, go ahead and use them.